So no fuel dump switch. There's only one good way to get rid of it. So drop the speed brakes, light the burner. Now, if you haven't been around an F-100 burner light, and it's docile on the ground, when you're going 400 knots in the air and you light that burner, it's impressive. Scared the living crap out of him.
Oh, I believe
he knew we had blown up. Shortly after we got the A7, we'd only had it a year or so. We went to Norway. That was all Sioux Falls. That was a good trip. And that led to the flyby. You've heard of the 32-ship flyby?
No.
We each put 16 airplanes in the air, made a huge diamond formation out of it.
Wow.
And flew back over the base. I have a picture of that on my man cave wall.
Were the airframes intermixed, or was it like
no,
a
it
group
was the 4-ship of F5s and then 2 4-ships of A7s. I was on the farthest left hand on Jerry Placco's wing.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody took a picture of it and put it in the Stars and Stripes Forever.
I
and
think
the generals
sounds familiar to me.
The generals saw it. And the next day, one of them was there because the general came to realize that this is a guard unit and he really can't do anything about it. But if he calls these guys boss, their state governor, maybe he can get us in trouble. And he talked to Janklow and told him what had happened. And Janklow said, well, did they look good?
Hello, this is Jimbo from the YouTube channel Jimbo, South Dakota, and this is the Hog House Chronicles podcast. And today I have a friend from many years ago. We were both full-time at the Air National Guard in Sioux Falls, and he's also a fighter pilot. This is John Carlson. So we're gonna dig into his past and experiences, and then we'll be going from there. So welcome. Thanks for doing this. I just asked you a couple weeks ago or so, and you thankfully said yes. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for asking and for doing this. It's really something that people don't think about near as much as we maybe should.
Mm-hmm.
I find that every once in a while, I think of somebody that, gee, I sure would have liked to cross paths with them and, it's kind of shared some memories.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I find out that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly why I started it, for your friends and family and to preserve your stories.
Mm-hmm. We've got some good ones.
Yeah. Ready to hear them.
Okay.
So where were you born and grow up, and say whatever you'd like to about family?
Okay, I grew up on a farm northeast of Centerville and spent my first educational years in a one-room country school called Morning Star. Graduated from there in 1963 and went on to join the infamous class of 1967 in Centerville High School.
Okay.
So I got my early education there. I joined the Air Guard that fall. My father had been an Air Guard member. We lost him the fall of my senior year to an accident. And that kind of led me to join up, and they sent me off. Well, I can't imagine doing this to a 17, 18-year-old kid. But they sent me to school for 8 months in Denver.
Oh, wow.
That was tough.
Oh, man.
And I started off as a WCS technician on the radars and the F-102s. When we switched from the 102s to the 100s, the radars went away, so then I went to the electric shop. And I went to school in Springfield. You know about that.
I did. I was part of the last graduating class out of there.
Yeah, back when we could come and go as we pleased.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the automotive technology. I went through the auto mechanics course, and I was in the process of becoming an auto mechanics teacher. And just obviously, I got an opportunity to go to pilot training in 72, which made me slam on the brakes, make a hard right turn, and packed up my wife and 1-year-old daughter and we headed off to Georgia for a year of pilot training, which lasted 54 weeks.
All right. So did you have aspirations to be a pilot to begin with?
I had aspirations to be a pilot since I was a little boy.
Oh, okay.
My cousin's husband had been a pilot, and Gordy Edmond lived just a couple miles away. He was one of the earlier Air Guard pilots, and he would go over every once in a while. So it was kind of in the back of my head, and I had inquired about it a few times at the Guard, and I apparently inquired amongst the right people and said, well, you come take a physical, you do all these tests and stuff, and all of a sudden I was on my way.
So you tested well, and there you
I guess.
go. Did you have like an interview to go through as well, or was it mostly like aptitude tests?
Mostly
and physical?
testing. At the time, we had a big turnover. That transition from the 102 to the 100, quite a few of the 102 pilots didn't stick around because it was a big mission change. 102s, you took off, went and found a bomber and shot it down. And the 100 was a lot more involved, low altitude, air-to-ground stuff, dogfighting. The 102, they didn't really do that stuff.
More of an air defense plane.
Yeah. So there was a big batch of us that came in then, and we started off at that inverted funnel with a whole bunch of us starting like with Steve Thu and Wally Dahl, and Joe Broker was ahead of me, and it went all the way down through Steve Doohan, myself, Tom Lee, and Dave Dawson. So there was quite a batch in there.
Not to date you, but did you meet Justin Berger?
Justin was just become the commander when I enlisted.
Okay.
And he was there until about 1980.
See, I don't have them displayed yet, and I haven't shown you that rear blacked out studio. I've used it only maybe about 4 times. There is a rack, an elk rack back there that Justy Berger shot.
That hung in the auditorium in base ops.
Did it really?
Is that, if that's the one I'm thinking of.
It's there right now. We could look at it after
If that's
this.
the one I'm thinking of, it hung on the north wall of that auditorium. When you went up the stairs, the coffee shop was on the north side and that auditorium on the south side, and it hung up on that north wall.
Because antlers were just cut off, one piece, the top of the skull holding it. Does that sound
No,
familiar?
this was a full head
This was
mount.
a full, okay.
I thought this was Joe Foss's mount.
Okay,
it was up there.
It could have been. And I don't know what either one of them had shot or stuff, but this particular set, Bob Jameson had them because he had hunted, I think, with Justy Berger, and he didn't want the rack. So Bob's boy Jammer, Matt Jameson, found him. He said they probably were in his dad's shed for 50 years.
Oh, okay, that's a different set then.
Yes, that's a different set, but with the history there, I'm going to get them hung out here sometime, but I'm going to get a sign so people remember what they're.
They take up quite a bit of space.
Yeah. Yep, they do. Yeah, if you look over your shoulder, I don't know if you notice, speaking of space, got that big, huge buffalo mount. That's the latest. That's the latest donation.
He needs a spotlight. He's kind of hiding back there in the shadows.
Yep, and I've got a flag up top there that I've had since I was 18. Got the original South Dakota flag when we were still the Sunshine State.
Oh, yeah?
And my Saddle Club flag over there, so I'm going to get like 4 pins and do the 3 flags and him. But anyway, when you're talking about the people that were in the Air Guard early on, that reminded me about those antlers. But go ahead.
So anyway, from that, I guard bummed for a while, which is a good time, financially straining, but Lee Stubbston and I did a bunch of it, Steve doing a little bit, and a few other guys. But those were the days when we went on every deployment we could get on, because then we got paid.
Right.
And
Phil
Kelly was just made major about that time, I think. And he was on a lot of those. He and Stubby and I went on a deployment to Vancouver on the Canadian side. And we flew with them for a few days. And the sponsor that was taking care of us up there told us, stay a couple days extra, I'll take you fishing. Well, you and I talk about going fishing. Going to the river's a big deal. No, this was a 26-foot cabin cruiser with 2 inboards, and we loaded that thing up with fried chicken. And I think there was a cooler involved.
Oh, yeah.
And we managed to keep that secret So this next time that opportunity came along, the 3 of us went again.
Right.
That doesn't always happen when you got a good deployment way.
Yeah. And
Guys
General
found
Kelly,
out about it.
rest in peace,
Yes.
just a month ago maybe.
Not even that. No.
Not even. Yeah.
He,
The operations building's named after him.
yep. Yeah, I was the president of the National Guard Association about the time that he became adjutant general, and before that, one time he left us and was going to pursue some other avenues, and we gave him a briefcase, a going away present, and he came back, and then he was the adjutant general, and he left us to go to the Guard Bureau, and we gave him a briefcase, and he came back again. So we haven't given him any more briefcases. He deserves a break.
One for each hand.
Yeah. So anyway, I did that until 1980 when I got hired. That's when Justin Berger retired. John Olson became commander. He had been DCM. Gail Westberg moved up to DCM and hired me as his assistant. So I was there until about 88, I think, when Westberg moved up to state staff, retired as a technician, and I became DCM. And a couple of years after that, we were working to build an air-to-ground gunnery range, and I took on that role for 3 or 4 years. And our whole purpose in existing was to provide a training venue for this 40 fighter wing Air Force that we were building towards. Well, those Russians folded up their tent and went home and took away our excuse. So then we folded that up and decided that what we're really doing here in trying to go and get this range built is highlighting ourselves as a place that maybe can't support fighters. Would be a good place to put tankers. So we thought maybe we better just fade away. And from there I went and ran the operational support aircraft business, which we had the C-12, and then we went for a short time to the Beech 1900, which we called the C-12 Heavy, and then the Metroliner.
Is that the C-26?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in about less than 3 years, I checked out in 4 different airplanes, which was maybe a record, I don't know. That it was a good time. That, of course, the politicians, being what politicians are, had for a long time didn't like the fact that the Air Guard had these support aircraft.
Yeah, because
and the regular Air Force didn't like them because they didn't have them.
Yeah, it wasn't long after I was there full time, and we'd take care of little bits and pieces of them. But then they centralized it all, and all us Guard wings lost them.
Yeah, I actually went and spent a couple of weeks. We had about a dozen of them mothballed in Indiana. So a group of us went over, and the mechanics got them all up to speed, and we went up and did check flights on them. And then we all got a group together and flew them all down to Mexico to give them to the Mexicans to run drugs with, or chase drug runners with.
Sure.
Whatever it was.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. So we lost those. And that was about the time that the last commander's selection that I was there for. Then we all knew what was going to happen. It was the right thing to happen. But General Sikora was there, and he did do us the honor of interviewing everybody that was in line where we could have moved into that position, and I appreciated that. And like I told him, I know I'm not the best choice for this job, and we all know who's going to get it, and I'm proud to serve with him. And then from that, had I wanted to keep going, I think my career path would have gone to Washington, Guard Bureau for a time. And then sometimes those lead into some pretty cherry jobs, like being a 12th Air Force advisor, or I know one of our friends that became the PACAF Guard advisor, that's stationed in Hawaii.
Yeah, as long as you can spend that time in the Beltway to earn the right for those
places. You're gonna pay your dues to get there. But for me, the better path was just to retire, and I managed to not hold any real jobs since then.
So were you a federal employee technician or
No,
AGR?
I was AGR. I was
Active
one of the
Guard
early
Reserve.
AGRs.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And there was some consternation. There was some of the leadership really saw the AGR program as a way for the Air Force to attempt to take over the Guard.
Right.
They didn't like it. Some folks had the idea that the AGRs were making more money, and it depended on where you were. In my case, it was pretty much a wash. If you were a GS-13 technician and a guardsman, so you got your flight pay and the camp pay and all that stuff, it worked out pretty close to the same. I got to retire earlier, and I had to retire earlier.
Mm-hmm.
There were a
There's
few
limits
of us
with age and stuff too with AGR, and
yeah.
And once you hit 20, you're kind of out there.
Yeah, once you're eligible to retire, you're not going to be around very long, or you weren't in those days. There's a lot more going on now. Some of it I think is good, and some of it I'm not so thrilled with.
Yeah, I didn't have the option for AGR. I was federal employee technician, but I was more than happy to work a full 30-plus years and more military behind that, and just retire at that point. So it depends on your rank. If you retire AGR, you might be able to, or you might have to be doing something more to add income, for a while, like have a second career. Kind of deal.
A lot of guys did.
Yeah.
And some wanted to. The airline pilots, I never really aspired to do that. I
was going to ask you that.
Bored, something terrible. Like I said, the kind of flying they'll pay me for, I wouldn't enjoy. The kind of flying I enjoy, I can't afford.
Yep.
So I was stayed on the ground, other than maybe to ride in the back and laugh at the hard landings in the airlines.
Yeah, every once in a while you hear comments when you're sitting on an airplane.
The last trip I was on, there was a memorable landing, and the pilots didn't come out of the cockpit. You know how a lot of times they'll shake hands with people as you're way off the airplane? No, they kept the door shut.
So how many fighters did you fly, and what were they?
Through the F-100, the A-7, and the F-16.
Okay, I was pretty sure you went into the 16 because we transitioned to that in like 91. I came on full time late 92, and you were there.
Right.
So
I was. I had come back to ops, and early 92, I went to Wichita and did the 3-month upgrade down there. Other guys went to Phoenix, to Luke Air Force Base. I flew it for about 4 years. I think I took my last F-16 flight about a year or so before I actually retired.
What year was that?
I retired in 97.
97. Okay. So we did work together for 6 years then. So
yeah.
What did you see as the differences between flying, when you went, say, from A7 to 16, what were the differences airplane-wise and also scholastically, academic-wise with those two airplanes?
To go back to the beginning, to the F-100, that was pretty much an iron sight airplane. And everything was, bombs were dropped manually. And you just, okay, that looks right. And when they went to the A7, we didn't really want to do that. We liked that F-100. The A7 airframe-wise was not. Fighter pilots' airplanes need to be fighters, not bombers. Then the A7 was more of a bomber.
Had a different look to it.
In fact, that's another one of Phil's legacies. I don't know that we were the only one, but we were the first that ever did air-to-air gunnery with an A7.
Oh, really?
And we went to Snowbird and flew out over the Arizona ranges, and we actually shot at the dart that they tow behind an airplane in front of you. I'm not going to speak to our prowess, how good we were at that.
At least you didn't hit the tow plane.
No, we didn't. That's,
as long as
you've heard that story.
You win.
But we spent 2 weeks down there doing that, and that was kind of memorable. So the
kind of thrilling.
The transition from the F-100 to the A-7 was mostly computers. The A-7 had the inertial navigation system in it, and the Doppler radar had an air-to-ground radar, no air-to-air radar. So flying the airplane, the A-7 was the easiest airplane to fly. It was very straightforward, forgiving. There was one instance where you could get what they referred to politely as a departure from controlled flight. And we had to go to a special simulator and experience that on how you get out of it, recover from it.
Right.
Then it was a good training platform for the F-16 for that reason, that now we're accustomed to all the input. Where in the F-100, you want to know what's going on, you look out the window.
Mm-hmm.
The A-7, well, you're getting a lot more information fed to you. The F-16 is another step up, only now we have the airframe advancement. I remember I told my wife one time, we used to go out in the A-7 on an air-to-air mission, and you'd yank that airplane around until it just couldn't take it anymore. You get in the F-16 and you get it, and you yank that airplane around until you can't take it anymore.
Right.
So that was good. And I've since then, how many years ago was it we had the F-22 demo at the air show? And I watched the things he was doing, and I remember remarking, that's not fair.
Yeah, that thing would just flip around, and the next thing you know, it's behind you.
Yeah, I'm interested now. I don't think they're going to get it this time, but I'd like to see the F-35 demo. Mm-hmm. That's got to be pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that air show is this July, I think, in the middle of the month.
Yep.
17,
and
18-ish.
last we talked about it. We still think that Sioux Falls will eventually get the F-35, but it's going to be 5 to 10 years yet.
Yeah,
you know, we just economically we're fools, because people look and they say, well, we have built so many of these airplanes that they cost this much to build them. Well, that's all the R&D money that's divided up amongst the first batch of airplanes that they built. So they try to dissuade you from buying more because they cost this much. But the next batch you buy is going to cost a fraction of that. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of it is just that peace dividend.
Yeah, we tried pretty hard with the unit to be early on with the earlier guard units to get those, and we're just kind of, it just hasn't worked out. We're just kind of toward the end of the line on that, where we'll get them eventually, but
yeah, and
we'll
it's
be at end
what
of the list.
They're saying that they're getting the political moves handled, where they might be able to go in now and start putting more emphasis on where they really fit.
Right.
And that's one that we have done over the years. Like I said, I would probably make a good Marine, because if we needed a new ops building, I would start with the Quonset hut and then put inside it what we need. Mm-hmm. Dave Holman was the civil engineer for quite a while I was in the senior leadership part, and we talked a lot about that. And things like the base ops building, are you aware of the alignment of the hall? The main hallway in the base operations building?
Yeah, it was aligned with the runway, I think,
right,
wasn't it?
That was Dave.
Originally, they were going to even put lights in the tiles and all that stuff, I heard, but then that kind of went away.
Yeah, it kind of didn't get that
still
far.
Parallel with the runway.
So he and I had some good discussions over supper. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of boring maybe to have square corners in every room, but it's a little inefficient to have angled corners in all the adjacent rooms.
Right. So
it looked pretty.
But that's got a lot to do with why the F-16s are still here and why we're still in the mix to get F-35s, because of the work that guys like Dave did in our facilities management. And did you get up and see the new maintenance?
Yes, I was on that tour.
That tour, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we still have the old hangar. Mm-hmm. They've been trying to tear down for, I don't know, when did 13 or 14 go up?
Oh, man.
The way it was in the
mid-'80s?
Early 80s even. Yeah, I'd say, in fact, it was, because it was there when I came into 80 as the maintenance officer. Uh-huh. So, there you got a building that's pushing 50 years old, and that's the new one.
Yeah, that was quite a ways before I got into that unit.
Mm-hmm. And then they're building another one. And we still may be able to salvage the existence of our old World War II hangar.
Right. got so much history. Just looking at the old pictures and stuff is pretty cool.
And we wanted to keep it for storage. There's people in Washington and a lot of places just don't understand. If you want to fly your airplanes tomorrow, you don't leave them outside tonight.
Yeah, because we're northern tier for sure.
Yeah. So that's interesting to see how that's going to go.
Well, they knocked down using classrooms and the administrative areas and stuff, but you still got that roof over your airplanes.
Right.
It's not, I would guess, maybe not that expensive to keep that thing.
I think that the cost of removing it offsets to a good extent the cost of keeping it.
For sure. But
we are authorized a number of square feet, and if we got more than that, there are bean counters there that don't like that.
Yeah, just having those original two was way beyond our authorized square feet, let alone the third one. So.
Right.
Here's something I didn't ask you earlier on. Do you have other family members that served in any of the militaries?
My brother was in for a while, and his son was in for a while, and my cousin's son is still a Navy chief in the Seabees, and he's done quite a bit of traveling. He's always been the reserve. I think he's always been reserve. But,
so most of them are Air Force?
Everybody else was Air Guard.
Air Guard, okay.
Yeah. My dad started out as World War II, and he went and signed up, and he wanted to go to pilot training, but his color vision wasn't adequate. So they made him a flight engineer on B-24s, and he flew the China, India, Burma over the hump. He had to get more than 100 missions over the hump, and he had the DFC and the Air Medal. So he set the bar for us. And other than that, I was the only one that made a career of it.
So did that help you decide to want to be in the military?
It had a lot to do with it, yes, because, like I said, when Dad died when the fall of my senior year, and it wasn't that I needed a draft deferment, I was going to college anyway, but I decided then that I wanted to do that. I wanted to join the Guard. I didn't know then that I would make a career of it, but that kind of things just headed that way. You know, sometimes you're going down a road and suddenly a fork shows up that you hadn't anticipated, and you decide which way to go, and your whole future looks different.
Yep, you live with it. Did you have much chance to go overseas with deployments and things?
Yeah, we started out, well, when I started, it was a big deal when we'd all pack up and go to Volk Field for 2 weeks.
Yep.
That was pretty much the standard. And in about 76, I think, in the F-100s, we went to Italy. That was a wing deployment with Sioux City and Des Moines. So we flew over there to Aviano, and we parked the airplanes, and we got settled in, and then they had an earthquake.
Really?
Now, you've been through blizzards. You've probably not been too far from a tornado. We see a lot about hurricanes here. Those don't bother me at all, but I don't want no more damned earthquakes. I've
got to feel two of them, fairly small, but both my daughters are in Anchorage. You got two grandkids and son-in-law up there now, so I was doing a little babysitting up there one day, and things started moving, and it was pretty wild. I don't know if you saw the pictures as a side note, but the bigger one of those two that I felt, that's where these people had a rental car, and they were heading to the airport, and they were taking the off-ramp.
Yeah.
And the whole ground dropped off around them most of the way around, almost a full circle. And they were stranded right in the middle of that. Yeah. So they got out of the car, walked to the side, got a ride to the airport, and called the rental car and took a picture and said, "There's where your car is."
Yeah.
But those things are crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks who've had experiences in that. And then shortly after we got the A7, we'd only had it a year or so. We went to Norway. That was all Sioux Falls. That was a good trip. And that led to the flyby. You've heard of the 32-ship flyby?
No.
Okay. The Norwegians are great hosts, and we had some party time over there. Bob Ellingson was the DO at the time, and I forget the name of the commanders of the Norwegians. But at one of those get-togethers, they came up with this idea. The Norwegians were flying F-5s, and we had our A-7s. we each put 16 airplanes in the air, made a huge diamond formation out of it,
Wow.
and flew back over the base. I have a picture of that on my man cave wall.
Were the airframes intermixed, or was it like
No,
a
it
group
was
and a group?
the 4-ship of F5s and then 2 4-ships of A7s. I was on the farthest left hand on Jerry Blackwell's wing.
Mm-hmm.
And it went well, except that somebody took a picture of it and put it in the Stars and Stripes Forever.
I
And
think
the generals,
that sounds familiar to me.
the generals saw it. And the next day, one of them was there.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, John Morrissey was our Air Force advisor at the time. He pretty much was saddled with the job of getting this general calmed down.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have the write-up that John made afterwards that talked about the whole deployment, but particularly that episode. And it ended up with that general on the phone with Bill Janklow, because the general came to realize that this is a guard unit, and he really can't do anything about it.
Uh-huh.
But if he calls these guys boss, their state governor, maybe he can get us in trouble. And he talked to Janklow and told him what had happened. And Janklow said, well, did they look good? And that was the end of it.
Yep.
So,
I
things
didn't
like
figure-
that we snuck through there.
Yeah, I didn't figure it would phase him much.
No, he had his own things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Duke Corning was the adjutant general at that time. So, of course, they had to go through the 2-star to get to the governor. And he was the same way. He just backed us all the way.
Yep.
So
Mm.
it was a little bit of an interesting few days there.
Sure. So
After that, went to England a couple of times. I went there one time. R.J. Clifton and I went to a command post exercise where we just sat in a hole in the ground and did paperwork for a couple of weeks. And then we did a deployment back there at Waddington, which is near Lincoln, Nottingham Castle. That's a disappointment. It's a big park with a bunch
Really?
of kids laying around on blankets, and you don't see much. But I still, I'm on another group that I just happened to stumble into a guy that was from that area. And there was a little bar there that we hung out at called the Horse and Jockey. And we'd been going to it and thought, man, this place is going to go broke when we leave. There's nobody else here. Well, that's because everybody else just went away and got out of the way. At that one, as we were coming home, one of the A7s was unable to take fuel from the tanker. So he and his wingman came back, and I had the en route support staff that stayed there to get that airplane fixed, and we were there another week or 10 days, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That the night after we're supposed to have left, well, we walked down to the Horse and Jockey, and the place was just full of all those people that hadn't been there while we were there. And the owner found out that we were still there and asked us why. We explained it to him, and he said, you come back tomorrow night, I'll feed you supper. And they whipped up what they called a wedding feast, and they really fit us good.
Wow.
They took good care of us.
How many of you guys were there?
There were 14, I think, altogether.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 pilots, myself, and then the maintenance guys.
Yeah.
So then we ended up going from there down to London, and Gary Bach was the mobility officer at the time, so he was in charge of airline tickets and stuff, and we had something set up where we were going to get on the tanker before it took off to bring the airplanes home, and Gary kind of bailed us out and got us airline tickets.
Yeah.
So we had a comfortable ride home.
Yeah, he was a good man, wasn't he?
Yep, good friend.
Mm-hmm. Was there, with your trips overseas, I don't know if you're done with that yet, but of your trips overseas, was there anything you saw that really surprised you or anything?
Surprised?
Or something
Not-
real interesting?
Yeah, a little bit that when you hear the stories about going to Europe and they're all about the ugly American,
Yeah.
never saw that.
Nice.
Never was unwelcome. Some places they were just overly welcome. Norway was one where they have a lot of World War II monuments and stuff, and they really appreciate the Americans. Still did, at least when I was there. The one that most impressive was Belgium, for several reasons. They set up a bus tour for us one day, and that's one of the things about all my travels, that I was never one to be a tourist.
Right.
I was there to do a job. Then we got to see a little bit. But on this one, they took us on a tour and started at Bastogne, the Battle of the Bulge. And the American War Memorial that is there is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And we went on to several other places. The most memorable is Luxembourg and the American War Cemetery there. And where I stood beside General Patton's grave and looked out over 4,000 white marble crosses and Stars of David. If you ever feel like you need a little jolt of humility, that'll get it to you just about as quick as anything.
Mm-hmm. Man.
We went to Portugal when they were getting the A7. It was kind of different. You could drive along, and it was hilly and twisting roads, and there might be a hulk of a car laying down at the bottom. And so, well, they crashed down there and just too much trouble to get it out. They just left it there. But where we go out and shoot fireworks, skyrocket, you put it in the stick, and then you light it and you run.
Mm-hmm.
They light it, hold it in the hand, wait for it to go off.
Yeah.
There were different things all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Panama, we all made a lot of Panama trips. That was one operational deployment, which goes back to that group. It was Phil Kelly, TJ, Lee Stubbston, myself. In 1979, we went down there and participated in what we came to call the 1979 Nicaragua War Games. That's when the Sandinistas took over. And the Americans are getting out. So the Missouri C-130s were there to fly up and take people out. And we were supposed to provide the air cover, which we kind of did from the swimming pool at Howard Air Force Base in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, I was the weapons and tactics officer, and I had a plan on, okay, this is what we're going to carry for weapons and how we'll employ them if we need to. And this little guy from Jimmy Carter's State Department comes along. No, you're not going to carry any bombs. You can load the guns, and you're not going to fly. You're going to sit on the ramp here. If they need you, they'll call you. Well, if they need us, they call us, so we're going to get there and just kind of observe the carnage because it's going to be too late to do anything about it. But that was my operational experience. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that memories, and there was a group of us in that age group that I spent 30 years in the service, 25 of those years on what would be referred to as the tip of the spear. Never fired a shot in anger. Never got shot at, as far as I know. At least I know I never got hit.
As long as I know.
So, and about the time that I retired, and Desert Storm, Desert Shield, at that time, they didn't want another airframe there, so the A7s were excluded. Mm-hmm. So none of us went. And I just didn't happen to be on the trip when Panama, when we took Noriega out, just cause. That was an impressive operation that the regulars couldn't believe we did it, because that all happened on the swap over weekend. I don't remember who was there ahead of us, but it started. We came in, and the other unit went home in the middle of that operation and just kept it going. And they just couldn't believe we could do that.
Logistical nightmare.
Yeah. Not for us, it wasn't. That's what we do.
Yep.
They couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good trips to Panama.
That's about the time I came in. I was actually at the Sioux City, Iowa unit for 18 months when I got out of the Air Force, Palace Chase, just after 2 years, 4 months. Left off it, went to Sioux City there for 18 months, and they were just doing their last Panama trip at that time. And then that's when I came up to Sioux Falls, and then that Panama was all done then.
Yep.
So
That was, again, that really was operational, but we were there to provide cover for the Panama Canal, which there again, I'm not sure just what scenario would have developed where we would have been able to do a whole lot about it.
mm-hmm.
But we were there and they knew it.
Yeah.
So,
What do you remember as one or two of your most challenging situations?
you would have been, you weren't there yet. A7. But your shop was involved. We do functional check flights on the A7, and one of the parts of it was checking engine response. At high altitude, I was at 42,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The canopy seal blew,
Oh, did it really?
and all of a sudden, I'm sitting there with no air. And everything worked automatically, and I reached down, gang loaded the switches, but they had already done their thing, so I was pressure breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that when you go through an altitude chamber, they're limited on what they can get you to, and 42,000 feet is quite a bit more than they could get us to. That was a eye-watering experience.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to tell air traffic control that I'm going to descend. And you probably have tried to talk while you're pressure breathing. It don't work.
Mm-hmm.
But you got the transponder. I could let them know that got a problem, and got down to where I could talk again and explained it to them. So
When that seal broke, did you hear a bang, and then was
yeah.
it real misty all of a
Yeah.
sudden inside the cockpit?
Yeah.
Because that's what they simulated with the
Yep.
altitude
yeah,
chamber.
it did
I
all
went
that
through.
stuff and double it.
Yeah.
So that was a memorable experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we all can think of times when we didn't hit the parameters quite right on a delivery and had to correct rather than hit the rock.
Mm-hmm.
Then those things are occasional. But we all know that the only reason we're here is because of our own extensive skill and cunning.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody helped us.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
Those, like I say, the trips, a lot of trips, a lot of snowbirds. We had, would have been in the 80s, I guess, when we were at a snowbird, and we had a employer support group trip, but that's we still had the C-131s, so they could haul a batch of people.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought them down, showed them around, and we had a dinner with them, and we all got to escort one of them. And I remember Roy Shields and I had Les Hawkey and Don Green, the Minnehaha County Sheriff and the Sioux Falls Chief of Police. So we ate dinner with them and asked them what they'd like to do. Well, are you familiar with Tucson and some of the places that we visited while we were there?
Yeah,
Guess which one they wanted to see. There was just north of the base. There was a gathering place. That a lot of college girls worked there. And that, I remember, might have been the same trip when the troops were staying not at the place we usually went with Ernie Manihuni and the Hawaiian Twins for the music. But this place, they hung out at a little bar, and it wasn't the song. I heard it through the grapevine.
Mm-hmm.
And they had two doors, and this would start a bunny hop type parade going out the front door and back around in the back door.
Yep.
Every time that song came on. So funny how you remember stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
The nightlife changed in the mid-'90s
It
for
did.
when we went, because you guys got night vision goggles.
Yeah, that I was just behind that.
Mm-hmm.
That the night vision goggles and the sensor pods
Mm-hmm.
were just coming in,
Yep.
and that really changed the air to ground, especially the fighter world.
Yep.
It added a lot of capability. That was one of the, back to that Panama trip or the Nicaragua, it's that we were daytime. We did drop bombs at night, but maybe on something like bridges. But as far as close air support at night, no.
No.
So that brought all of that into the realm of possibility.
Yep. So when we did snowbirds and any other deployment, we had a night shift along with day shift and stuff. So people got segregated a little bit. You know, all those deployments, you would really meet people that were in different shops, and then when you get back home, you see them in the chow line, and and your base of friends just got bigger and bigger. And the goggles brought a lot of technology and stuff to it, capability, but the social part of the guys and gals, I could see diminished a little bit with not being able to all be together at night.
Some changes in that relationships between the different groups of people.
Right.
Where we were one big guard unit and officers enlisted and everybody was one group, and now that is more or less gone away. There's not so much of it, which I think that's a weakness. It's one of our strengths that made us as good as we have been.
Right.
Is that relationship between the whole unit.
Yeah, and when you got E7s still out there kicking tires, taking care of the same airplane for the last 18 to 20 years.
Right. That's another one we
training
got.
the young guys right there. I mean, that was a lot of relational stuff.
We being the whole Air Guard had gotten into some hot water with the Air Force over the fact that we did have tech sergeants and even master sergeants crewing airplanes. And they thought that was wrong. And then there was a time when we had to pare that down, and it was a tough time. With some folks being stuck that couldn't get promoted.
Right.
And people retiring and we couldn't replace them. That was a difficult time.
What's one of the most important things you think you learned with serving in the military and flying?
I think one of the things that I'm most proud of, and it's culture-wise, it's military, DOD-wide, what I saw of it at the unit level. When I enlisted in 1967, we had a handful of girls, and they were pretty much relegated to either clerical or medical. And when I retired 30 years later, we got girls flying F-16s.
Yep.
We had a lady out east was an adjutant general. We had a few ladies in our unit that had risen to command level positions. And I think that people undervalue the military's contribution to gender equality, racial equality, things that today there are people in both those and in other fields that live on perpetuating the controversy. They can't allow racial harmony to progress because it will deteriorate their power and prestige. And gender-wise the same way.
I totally agree with that.
That's something that, and I'm proud that we got to hire several ladies who went on to non-traditional roles, mechanics. I remember we hired a gal as we were hiring her as a typist. And she became the chief of training. Moved up to John Stenslang. So it's Vicky, you remember. I don't know if you remember Vicky.
Vicky, what was her last
Vicky
name?
Jorgensen.
No, I've heard the name.
I don't think so. Then we went on a lorry binge. The Westberg was still there, and we hired 3 lorries in a row.
Oh, yeah?
They all spelled their name differently. And they were lorry, we had one was about that high, one that high, and one that high. But they went on to good careers. We had a pair of traditional guardsmen girls in the munitions storage field. Now, you've been around the bomb dumps enough to know that the people that build bombs are a little bit special on their own. And we had those 2 gals. One of them brought her snake to work. But they didn't stick around. They did their 6 years and moved on. But
yeah.
but again, it was non-traditional. So there's a lot of that went on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One thing I like asking is, what's the most rewarding part of the serving that you've done?
Well, just covered part of that. It was the progress that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Friendships that have been made that hang around.
Mm-hmm.
Folks that we know will be getting together with a lot of those people and at the air show or before the air show. I enjoy going to those things. And then coffees. Get together with the old folks that we served with, and I especially appreciate when we get kept up to speed on what's going on
Mm-hmm.
how much things have changed. I'd say when I started off, 2 weeks in Volk Field was a big deal. And we just had a group gone overseas for 8 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot of difference. I think the growth in the participation, like our family support group, that kind of has all evolved since I started.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit of it there, but it was informal. And
Right.
now folks are taking care of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal. Getting to travel all the time I spent in Washington, and I kind of kid about, I grew up in Centerville. And other than 3 years when I went to pilot training and then Tucson, and then the first year back from there, I lived in Clay County. Otherwise, I have lived in Lincoln County all my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have relatives and friends, classmates all in Centerville. Said I like spending time there. But when I became the director of plans and programs, I started going to meetings. Some of it was because they were commander level meetings. Our commander didn't want to go, so he sent me.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of traveling. And that last 5 years, I lived in T, when I spent more time in Washington than I did in Centerville. That probably isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a great place to go back and visit. Great place to live now too. But
Yeah.
the things that they keep up, it's the inventors of the toilet bowl race. It's kind of,
I've heard about
it faded
that.
out over the years, but it's still unique. And they have what they call Halloween. That's a car show and food vendors and just a couple of blocks where the main street all blocked off. And a lot of people there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. I was glad to see when I started going to Retirees Coffee that you were there. General Steve Doohan was there.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Dawson.
Yeah,
As
Denny
far as
Clausen.
the
Denny Clausen
Denny
comes pretty
Clausen was
regular.
there. Yeah. It's a small number of pilots that
Right.
go, but at least some go, and
Yeah.
I like to see that. And there's some of them that will visit at retirees or the safety meeting, Friday safety meetings.
Yeah.
I got to get to more of those. I've been pretty bad
I
about
do.
going.
The timing, it somehow just seems to conflict a lot with my other goings on once in a while.
Well, Friday
When
afternoon.
like Tom Erickson's get together down at Pierceford, I'd make a point of that.
Yeah.
Tom was a contemporary, good
Mhm.
friend.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like to
for
get to
sure.
a few of them.
Mm-hmm. What was one of your best days or situations, or multiples if you want to mention them?
Best days.
Yeah.
They narrow it down to a day, probably the day that my wife pinned my wings on.
Nice.
That was the end of a trying year. Some folks don't realize that pilot training is intense. And one of the things that they do early on is bring the wives in to talk to them and explain to them, hey, your husband might not be as attentive as you would like him to be for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And they're right. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of studying. And in my own case with a wife and a 1-year-old who kept her busy anyway, she wasn't lonesome.
Yeah.
She
Yeah, I've heard from some of the younger ones say those dudes that were married when they go through that, they're like, I don't know how they did it, kind of deal, because they, you got to be so micro focused on the training that it's hard on families. That's why when there's retirements, they always bring the spouse, significant others, kids, whatever, up on the stage because family serves as well.
That's a fact. And it was hard to understand how some of the single guys, especially the academy grads, how they made it through because they had focus on other things besides just learning to fly.
Right.
So how'd they balance that?
Mm-hmm.
And the academy grads were the less disciplined, I think, because they had been so disciplined for so long that now they got loose.
Right out of high school.
You've seen what happens when you have feeder cattle in a feedlot, and they get out. How wild they get. Yep. I think there's probably a little bit of relationship there.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there was a lot of proud days. A few.
A lot of people don't like getting dressed up in your dress blues, but I've explained to a lot of younger people that, some people maybe wouldn't admit it, but when they're putting that on for an event and they're ready to walk out of the bathroom and they see themselves in the mirror there, I think there's a little more good, honest pride than what people
have
admitted.
Very much. And the get-togethers. Again, you got the group. Where carrier landings are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not what people think you're going to do when you put on a dress uniform.
Yeah.
But, yes, it's being able to wear that and having absolutely no patience with people that wear it that haven't earned it.
Mm-hmm.
And or people that claim the benefits that they didn't do it.
Even just when I ask if they have a military discount when I'm out in town buying something, and I'll go ahead and show them the ID, and they're just like, oh, they want to show, well, we believe you, this and that. They don't want to have to vet or turn somebody down. But I told one clerk, I was just like, I wonder how many people cheat on that. And the guy said that too. Might have been an automotive place or something. But he was like, oh, man, I got a story for you, whatever. And I won't go through it, but
they do, and I think, I won't name the stores, but there's a pair of them that are pretty much alike. They do the same stuff. And one has a military discount. I go there enough that I go to the same checkout, and the same gal usually works there, and all I have to do is give her the phone number that I registered with, and that takes care of it.
Mm-hmm.
The other one I go to, you can't have your military discount if you don't have the app on your phone. I'm not big on apps on phones. I don't think that they put them on there because it makes a good deal for me.
Right.
It benefits them.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I don't ask for a military discount. My wife asked for the senior discount.
Yeah.
I didn't used to do that, and the first time I walked in someplace, and this little gal gave me the senior discount without even asking.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I don't worry about it.
No, me neither.
It's generally 10%, and okay. If they want to give me 10% off, I'll gladly take it.
Yep.
I'm not going to go looking for it.
And there's some businesses too where not asking for it just because you want to patronize them, especially the smaller businesses.
Yeah. There are some.
There's something to that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember some of the funniest things you were either involved in with or witnessed, whether it be overseas deployments or just flying?
A funny one, and I guess there's a reason that I keep ending up down this avenue. Early on, we had a dining in, just us and not the wives. And Dan Robar was the president of the mess, and I was Mr. Vice. So for those that don't know how that works, when somebody wants to address the mess, they have to address me, and then I ask them what they want, and then I address the president. And he says, yeah, we'll listen, or no, we won't. And the beloved Phil Kelly, in his younger days, had some things he wanted to say. And I think about the third time he got up, and I addressed him, and I addressed Dan Robar, and Dan Robar says, tell the captain to sit down and shut up. Probably the only time I ever got to do that.
Yeah, for sure. When you were growing up, what were your hobbies?
Hunting and fishing,
Pretty standard.
pretty much farm boy stuff. For what we got to do for hobbies, that city kids didn't understand it. And even in grade school, when you come home from school, you have to change clothes. Well, the city kids had to change clothes so they could go out and play. We had to change clothes so we could go out and play with the cows, do the chores.
Right.
I did mechanical stuff. I kind of gravitated towards that early. I don't know where it came from, but we had an old washing machine engine down the basement. I have no idea how many times I took that apart and put it back together.
I figured you had some mechanical aptitude because you were talking about some of the mechanic schools later as well.
And did a lot of the shade tree stuff. And I put a lawnmower engine on my 3-speed bicycle. To do it, I borrowed a great big V-belt pulley off the combine. So I actually got to ride that till fall when Dad wanted the pulley back.
Yeah. And it wasn't all wore out.
No, it was still in good shape. I hadn't really crashed it.
When you were flying and working, did you have time for hobbies then?
Somewhat. Mostly camping and just going boating with the family. And that was most of what I did then. We had just a bowl. And that back in the time when that was at one time the most popular participation sport in America. And it kind of faded away, and my shoulder got bad, my wife's knee got bad, and we took up golf. And that all started when my number one daughter in high school decided to go out for the golf team. Well, in the process of setting her up for that, well, the whole family ends up out there. So I thought I might be ready to put her back in the will. But we'll forgive her for it eventually.
How about after retiring? Hobbies there?
I helped brother on the farm for a while. Mostly that golf course in Lenox I've been involved with for most of 40 years. And I was the president of the board there when we put the irrigation system in. And different times over the years when they've found problems with it, and I've gone back and helped work on it, and probably the last 10 years I've just been pretty much running it. And I've dug a lot of holes, fixed a lot of leaks. And I've worked with a lot of high school kids. They hire them for the summer.
That's cool.
And I can tell you right up to all those folks that talk about and talk negatively about the upcoming generations, you send them and spend a day with me, you see something you ain't seeing. They're good.
Yeah, I hate it when people just get so down on the next generation. There's good and bads in all. It's just there's so many more people, but those categories of percentages have gotten bigger, so it depends on where you're at, who you're exposed to.
Yeah,
but also their good old days are when they're young as well, just like
ours were.
Yep.
There's the things that our parents didn't think we were doing very well, and some of the things that we did.
Yep.
My children, they were pretty docile for not too hard to get along with, and grew up into good, solid human beings.
Right.
Where there's a few folks around that I maybe not have quite that good opinion of.
Yeah.
But every generation has their own.
Yep, that's for sure.
The hair usually is part of it. When you still got some, you can do stuff with it.
Yeah.
Tattoos, never cared for them. If I had been a Navy SEAL, I probably would have one.
Right.
A tattoo.
But not necessarily a whole sleeve.
No, not. And it would be, if I had one, it would signify something, not just decorative.
Right.
And that's a way that the generation is, not all of them. But
Yeah. So some years before you retired, still on the hobby subject, was there anything you thought about that you were going to do in retirement, or something that you started doing in preparation for retirement, or how did that transition
fishing.
work? Yeah.
And like the kids were more into water skiing and stuff, and we did some fishing. Well, when I retired, I joined a group of retired people that I knew, and we were mostly shore fishing and ice fishing. I'd never been ice fishing before.
Oh, no.
And the downside of that is I retired when I was 47 years old, and I'm going out now hanging out with these guys that are all 67 years old. I don't have any fishing partners anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're all gone. And I find that fishing gets to be a bit of work. I've been through the ice once. That's no fun.
No.
I was younger then, and it wasn't a big deal, but I don't want to do it now.
Wow.
And otherwise, ice fishing, I've always spent winters trying to find new ways to keep warm. Well, believe it or not, ice fishing is not a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
If you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
You get in that shack and you sit there, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, for sure. So you were AGR, you retired at a young age. Did you end up taking on another job to supplement income then, or were you able to just do
nothing.
it on what you had?
I did some other work,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing that I had to show up for, and nothing that I got a W-2 for.
Right.
So, and it's not real comfortable. Lieutenant Colonel's retirement pay, it's enough for me to get by. And a lot of that is because my wife and I both understood that we lived below our means. We never went out and got fancy stuff or needed anything real expensive. And so when we retired, the transition wasn't that difficult.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Especially at that age.
Yeah.
That's enviable.
Yeah, I could do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like when they told me when I got old enough for Social Security, I started right in at 62 for a couple of reasons. One, I'm going to get one check out of them assholes no matter what. But they said, well, if you wait till I had to wait till about 67 for full retirement, then your check will be bigger and you could afford to buy something like a nice boat. Well, okay, I don't have to buy a real nice boat. I can buy something smaller now. Well, I can still use it.
Yep.
I don't know as I get older if I'm going to want to or be able to use that stuff. So, as we've said, and never know. Get these things done when you can.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I retired at 57 and a half with the almost 31 year technician retirement, 35 military. And I remember walking down the hallway, probably within 5-6 months of me retiring, getting ready for it. And a pilot heard me say this at the time, Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy doing. And I don't know if I was walking with somebody or what, but I used the wrong word. I was like, man, we sure are lucky to be able to retire at the age that we are. And he stops and he turns, looks at me, and I'll remember this forever. He says, lucky based on good decisions in the past. And I was like, yes, sir, I won't forget that.
That's the definition of luck when preparation meets opportunity. You have to have them both.
Yep. So, yeah, love that guy. He was on the very first podcast I did with him and his dad, General Steve, doing, and that was fun. Heard some old aircraft stuff on that. They missed each other on being able to do a flight together by 7 months, something like that. But when I was down at Sioux City for that 18 months, and I had the name, I think Al or Alan was the son's name. But anyway, it was a father-son team there. And I was working there as a guardsman, happened to be on a guard drill weekend, and got to see a father-son be wingman for one flight. But that was pretty cool. Wish I could remember their names right now. But that's something else I'll remember when we're visiting over there after this. So transition transitioning into retirement really was not an issue.
It wasn't, and it helped. I think that as I was a pretty senior F-16 pilot, and we all get to the point where we aren't contributing as much as what we were, and because of the operational support aircraft program, and I got involved in that, and it was kind of like being able to shift gears.
For sure.
And coast a little bit on the way out the door. That was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. That high-performance fighter aircraft, that's hard on your body.
It is. That's then there were a few guys, Steve Doohan being one, who was there quite a bit longer and didn't enjoy all of it.
Yeah.
That's you come back from an F-16 mission, especially an air-to-air mission, and things start to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little time to loosen up.
Yeah, so you got the physical part of that, but you also have the mental part that I've heard of when guys get into more of the commander level role. It's hard for them to take not being that tip of the spear anymore. That term that you mentioned
and the concentration. A captain fighter pilot can think about being a fighter pilot all day long.
Yep.
And the further up you go, the more you transition into how come that hangar that I put into the budget that we submitted to the Guard Bureau that went to the Air Force that made it into the President's budget wasn't there when Congress came back with it. And then that was one of our members sitting in Tom Dassel's office, and I think there was 4 of us that went in and actually got that hangar put back in.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, knowing the delegation helps.
Yeah, and we've always had good Guard supporters there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my personal favorite was Jim Abner. Jim was the ultimate cross-the-aisle type guy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a group of us, about a dozen of us, I think, that he was giving us a tour of the Capitol. And we're walking down the hall and coming the other way at Ted Kennedy with a group of his people. And Kennedy stopped, and he shook hands with all of us. Jim shook hands with all of his people. They talked a little bit. And as they're leaving, Kennedy said, "You South Dakota people need to send more people like Jim up here."
Mm-hmm.
And those are things
cool.
that most people don't see because it's hidden. I think it's hidden on purpose. Well, the first time I was in Washington, I maybe was a captain. It was junior officers anyway that the command folks took a group of us along just to show us around. One of the things that they showed us was a restaurant where a lot of the political people go. And you would see, like today, you might see Chuck Schumer and John Thune having lunch together.
Yep.
You wouldn't expect that from what you see in the news. But there's a lot of that goes on there. There's a lot of role playing.
Yeah. Well, and that goes along with the Guard, as we've learned, when we just do snowbirds or deployments and, you got operations and maintenance and they're trying to get things scheduled pilot-wise, airplane-wise. There's maybe some headbutting here and there. But that night you go to the bar and you visit, and that's where most of the problems are solved.
A good share of it is, and I remember when I got hired, I went to Chanute Air Force Base, another one of those places that isn't there anymore.
Been there.
That was the maintenance officer school. And there was 15, 20 of us from regular Air Force and Guard folks, all pilots that were going into the maintenance officer field. They had this special school just for us. It's in the same building that all the second lieutenants are going to maintenance officer school. We started at a different time. We had lunch breaks at a different time. You could have gone through that whole school and never talked to a second lieutenant.
Right.
Okay. Come to find out, the commander of the base hated pilots. and she made sure it was that way. When we first got there, they put us in an old barracks, almost an open bay type operation.
Oh,
and
man.
I was captain then. One of the guys there was a lieutenant colonel that he went to the BOQ people and said, "You're going to do better than that." Well, they set us up in a group of fourplexes where we had basically a 4-bedroom house that we all stayed in. And just to kind of put the thumb in the eye, we put on a chili feed and invited every second lieutenant on the base.
Nice.
And got to know them, and then we talked to the school people, and we got the times changed where we went to coffee when they did,
Yep.
and our breaks together, so we got to talk to them, and they got to learn that what these instructors were telling them about pilots maybe wasn't really true, and that was the philosophy in that whole school. It was an us and them thing.
Yep.
That they had to protect their airplanes from those pilots. And that's kind of how they taught it.
Life's about relationships, and work is about life, and work is about networking.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of that when I was a pilot that went to be a maintenance officer. And some of the maintenance officers saw me as that jerk from ops.
Right.
And some of the ops people saw me as that jerk from maintenance. So it's a little bit of walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
But it was, at least here, it was never a problem and never a real issue.
Yeah. There's one maintenance officer that was in there that when I got to the supervisor role in the life support shop before it became aircrew flight equipment, asked me to start coming to the morning maintenance meetings, you know, and, you know, obviously I knew more of those guys more socially than work-wise, you know, but, you know, you kind of get the raised eyebrow when you walk in, and then next thing you know, you're there the next day and the next day and the next day.
Right.
And, you know, I felt pretty comfortable, but there was still the old, hey, there's the ops puke guy. You know, I think that's a funny term. We called ourselves that, the ops pukes.
Yep.
And, but yeah, a lot of good relationships and things, but there's a little bit of a divide there, but there's just so many good people in South Dakota Air Guard that you didn't see it
so
much.
much of it is the one big group. The one difference was the civil engineers. They always were kind of their own. And I just met a guy yesterday who was there in those days.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know him.
Yep.
And
they do all their own deployments and
right.
the whole thing. And they do some pretty amazing things, I found out later on in my career.
Yeah.
But I just knew that they're the people we called when he had problems with our building.
Right.
You
And
know, that was it.
if you want a building built, then
Start there.
yeah. We had some good folks down there and worked with them on getting a lot of stuff done. That reminds me of another one of those long-term memories that when they'd bring kids around, the recruiters would, and showing them around, and I would talk to them, and I'd say somebody from Beersford or Centerville or someplace down in that area, and to tell them I'm come from there, and the standard response was, "Well, you probably knew my dad."
Yep.
Until it got to be, "You probably knew my grandpa."
Yeah.
Then that was one of the hints that maybe it was time.
That's funny. I've got a question that I saved toward the end, but I want to see, is there anything else that's coming to mind? And we can jump all over the place. Any stories or anything you wanted to portray?
One of the subjects I remember, I was a pretty fresh lieutenant. We did an F-100 deployment to Gulfport, Mississippi. And part of that, and part of a lot of deployments, we had a couple of two-seaters, and when the two-seaters would fly, we would put somebody in the back seat, an enlisted type, as an incentive ride. One day, I was number 4, and I ground aborted the aircraft. The spare was the two-seater. So I get there, climbing in. I'm starting the engine while they're strapping this kid in the back seat. I haven't even seen him. And we barely got to where we could communicate over the intercom so I could talk to him. when we taxied. And about all I got through to him was, make sure you get your hands out of the way because I'm closing the canopy now. So we took off, and it was only a 10-minute flight to the range there. And normally, you start off doing dive bombs, so you're up pretty high altitude and not getting real close to the ground. That day, for some reason, we strafed first. And you're right down there in the dirt doing that.
Right.
So after the second pass, I thought, this kid hasn't said anything. Oh, I asked him, how you doing back there? And what I heard was, I want to go home. Okay. I circled the range a couple of times, and he still wasn't with it. And so I told him I got to take him home. Well, in that short flight, F-100 had a maximum landing weight. So no fuel dump switch. There's only one good way to get rid of it. So drop the speed brakes, light the burner. Now, if you haven't been around an F-100 burner light, and it's docile on the ground, when you're going 400 knots in the air and you light that burner, it's impressive. Scared the living crap out of him.
Oh, I believe
he knew we had blown up.
Oh, no.
So finally, got back on the ground, and the guys peeled him out and hauled him away. I did see who it was. I thought, well, there's some poetic justice here. The kid was a cook. Well, in Gulfport, we had a club, which was an old barracks, just gutted and with a bar in it.
Mm-hmm.
I walked in there that night, and there he's sitting there with his buddies, and he's telling them all about this wonderful ride he had.
Oh, no.
And I said, hey, it's his story. Let him tell it. But that stuck with me. I got to give quite a few rides over the years. And I swore that every time I brought somebody back from a ride, they're going to wish they could turn right around and do it again. They're never going to get out and kiss the ground being glad it's over.
Right.
And I hope that message carries on.
Yep.
Those are called incentive rides for a reason.
Right.
The kids don't get very many chances to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a gal in an F-16 and had her flying the airplane.
Yeah.
And a lot of that.
Air sickness is what makes it the worst.
Now, there was
people.
one difference, and I hope he watches this. It was Scott Carpenter. I got to take him for a ride to Tucson on the A7.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out. We were the target for a F-16 from the Air Guard school down there. And I think Scott, to this day, probably has a whole different reception when somebody says, watch this. He's going to remember.
Yeah. Oh, man. Any other cool stories that you got?
Oh, stuff that I'll think of later, yeah. Just like we all do that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Well, I always did, just do it worse now. It's kind of like I've never been good at associating names and faces and remembering, I knew this person and that's so-and-so. You'd think after all these years of practice, I should be getting better at it.
Yeah.
It isn't working. Hard to keep track. So Tucson was good food. Mm-hmm. They had a variety. I never really caught on to the idea that you ought to get great seafood in Tucson.
Yeah.
But the 2-bar 2, I can't think that's not there anymore. They had the Anita Special. That was things to put on your checked off list. Was the Anita Special at the 2-bar 2, the whole rack of ribs at Pinnacle Peak, and the 2-pound steak at Little Abner's.
And if you wear a tie, Pinnacle Peaks are going to cut it off with a scissors.
It's going to be hanging from the ceiling. Yep. A lot of good stuff on those trips.
Yep.
Remember one of the combined deployment with the Army Guard to Hurlburt Field.
Really?
And most people have never been there. It's not real well known.
Right.
But I flew with the maintenance guys down there on the C-130, and then the airplanes came down later, and then the Army guys were on the same airplane, and we all got on the ramp and downloaded. And the Army guards are unloading their tents and all their equipment and loading them on 6x6s and whatever. And the guys from Hertz came up and delivered our rental cars, and we headed for the Holiday Inn.
Bam.
Yep.
That just happened.
You can fight the war how you want it. We ain't going to be uncomfortable when we do it.
Yep, exactly. Yep, they call us the chair force.
Yeah.
We're like a badge.
Yeah, I do. I share a meme every once in a while that makes fun of our side.
There you go. So you've got kids, grandkids, and down the line there's going to be great grandkids and great grandkids, people that you'll never meet.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe they'll get a chance to see this someday.
That hope somebody hangs on to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I can give you a digital copy too, besides just relying on
That'd be cool. Yeah.
YouTube. So we can.
That's one of my. I'm a couple of things that I have interest in. One that I developed when I took the oath of office, that I swore to uphold and defend a Constitution that in 16 years of public education, I don't remember I ever read it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I never studied it. And that kind of set me off on a quest to study history, especially American history, and to realize what a pathetically poor job we're doing of that, teaching our people the things that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that and vintage rock and roll. I'm a country boy at the heart. I love country life. I love country people, country values. But my musicians have to actually hit the note they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I've got, this was in the 70s. I went high tech, state of the art. I had one unit, had a turntable, an 8-track, and a cassette. So over time, I copied all my music from the records and the 8 tracks onto cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the CDs came out. So I eventually started transferring stuff. And you can get more music on a CD than you can on a cassette.
Right.
Then this little tiny thing comes out, and I've got one in each of my vehicles. I've got 3,555 rock and roll songs on it, and you'll never hear the same one twice.
Right.
And I get to thinking, I've got boxes full of albums, and this little thing has many times the music on it.
Isn't that amazing?
That how far we've come.
And that's just a short period of time.
Yeah, really. When you look at the things that we've done, when I retired, we didn't have internet. In '97, it was there. We had it in the Guard. We kind of stayed away from it because it was just a good way to get in trouble.
Yeah.
If apparently it's not considered so anymore, but if you did an official communication, it had to be logged and preserved and all that stuff, and you couldn't do it on your own if we didn't have it anyway.
Right.
But it wasn't long after retirement. About the time I retired, I think we first got dial-up internet.
Yeah.
And email. And that was what I really found out, that you can go to college on there. There are hundreds of colleges that have their classes on YouTube, basically. You can go watch history courses. You can go watch ancient history. You can watch English, math, whatever you want to learn about. And I spent a lot of time on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the good things. It's better than the video games they came up with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
I like that.
Well, being the history buff that you are, and you've got those great grandkids, let's just say 40 of them are sitting underneath that center camera right there. What would you like to turn and say to them?
I think hopefully that they will have already known it, but one of my pet peeves is the number of times that people refer to our country as a democracy. Never have been. Mm-hmm. Thank God we aren't. But people don't understand that our founders didn't create a constitutional republic by accident. They knew what they were doing and why they were doing it. And we've seen some of it when the way our country is supposed to be run, the people elect their government. The people do not govern. And we've seen that government bow to what basically boils down to mob rule. And some things that are being done that aren't being done as well as they could be, simply because it's the way that they can do it that generates the least resistance. And I suspect that that's going to continue because it is just so widely accepted.
Mm-hmm.
You never hear anybody refer to the republic anymore. They always say the democracy.
Right.
And that's
an interesting take.
A lot of differences there. Some people, that's the same thing. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. So that was a good part of the studying that I've done. I'm being a veteran. My American history studies tend to lean towards the military history, the wars that we've fought. And I think probably one of those things that I would like to do in a way is sit down with somebody that has studied the Civil War as I have, but not from the perspective that so many people do, in that this general was victorious on this battle and that kind of stuff, but understanding why it happened and what if it hadn't happened. That what would the world be like today if the Confederacy had just become their own country? We hadn't lost 600,000 American lives. And there are people who tell you, well, there would still be slavery. Well, no, they're different. Slavery is not an American abomination. It's a worldwide abomination. The difference is we're the only country in the world that ever fought a war to bring it to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, once in a while I get into some short-term discussions with folks that I've never given that any thought.
Mm-hmm.
They all look at history as memorizing names and dates and places, and I had the good fortune to have one college professor that taught history in a way that he could not grade you on a multiple choice test. First, you had to demonstrate your understanding of the subject, and he had to be able to read your papers and tell that you understood. And that's a lot of work. I understand why not very many history teachers do that. It's one I have thought more in recent years that was probably another avenue I could have taken. I'd have still been a teacher, but that's history teachers, for the most part, that was someplace to give a legitimate position to the coaches. And real history buffs, there weren't that many. It was like philosophy. A lot of people with a degree in philosophy working at McDonald's. Where have you ever seen a want ad in the paper, philosopher wanted?
Right.
It doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been one of my pursuits.
Yeah. Well, hopefully some of your ancestors will be doing the same, following in your footsteps.
Could be.
Cool. All right. Well,
should think of something else. I'm sure I will on the way home.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you,
really
Jim, for doing
it.
this. This is a really special thing for especially a guard guy to be doing, and I think more of the guard folks should take this opportunity to contribute.
Yeah.
I hope they do.
Yep. Well, I've got a list, and people are free to come up and talk to me too. But I did notice that you and I had met eyes at the previous retirees coffee, and I just thought I think it's time to.
We had talked about it back probably about the time you first started doing it.
Yep, it had been
and
a year and a half
you weren't really ready to schedule stuff yet,
mm-hmm.
and
that
I didn't give it a lot of thought
a couple
until
years ago.
as I've watched a couple of them and thought, it doesn't have to be something special, just something to put down that folks can.
Absolutely. We're just preserving people's stories so that they don't have those regrets that you mentioned earlier. So.
Right. And the statute of limitations is gone.
I've heard that quite a few times,
Yeah.
but some don't want to trust it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, I don't remember if I said or just thought of that in a retirement party that 30 years of service, you create a lot of memories.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about some of them today. And some of them were not.
Yep.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. And thanks for watching, everybody.